They are known to be owning around $1 trillion worth of assets, and they are regarded as the largest alternative asset manager the world has ever seen. Well, like everything good that is thriving, there must always be an evil bit of it. Blackstone has been monopolizing the residential housing market, and even their use of child labor has recently been exposed. Blackstone currently is in major turmoil, as they are almost on the brink of collapse as they daily continue getting closer to that financial mark where it will be nothing but completely dissolved. Like any other interesting video we ever uploaded, we therefore ask you to stay hooked to this video till the end, as we expose the dark side of Blackstone. Ready? Then let's quickly dive in. Blackstone's flagship investment, their real estate investment trust, has been suffering from a slow but steady bank run for 5 months now. If you can remember very well what we said in our previous video about Blackstone saying no to its investors, then we can still affirm to you that the same answer is still given out to the investors even today. No has been the tune of their song, and since November, their doors have always remained shut. January began, and there was no change. February came, and still nothing new came. It has been a long trend, and now we are counting 5 straight months of Blackstone's investors running to the bank, only to find doors still closed. How this is called a bank run has not only amazed us, but also everyone else who has a greater understanding of Blackstone. From our point of view, Blackstone isn't technically a bank, as many of you might be thinking for all this while. Blackstone has it written into their contracts with their investors that they're allowed to do this, and that the investors have no legal recourse. But none of that changes the fact that Blackstone's flagship $100 billion rate is dropping in value, and investors are trying to get out with everything they've got. And as far as if that was not enough, last month it was highly evident that Blackstone had officially defaulted on their debts. Blackstone was due to repay a $562 million bond in early March, but it failed to make that payment, and this adds now to 2 pieces of debts that they have defaulted. This is a debt that they owned on a portfolio of loads of different properties, but the ongoing decline of property prices means that this debt is unprofitable, and now Blackstone cannot afford to repay it. It is quite funny how they approach their debtors for an extension, but to their disappointment, their debtors refused to accept any further extension. Little did they know that things had just gotten hotter for Blackstone. With all these problems in their books, Blackstone is claiming that there's nothing to worry about, and that their debt relates to a small portion of the corresponding portfolio. But if this is true, why are they not paying their debts off? If $562 million is just pennies to them, why did they default on this debt? Blackstone's CEO and founder Stefan Schwarzman was paid out $1.27 billion in 2022 for supposedly generating Blackstone so many profits, and Blackstone paid out over $5 billion to their other shareholders over 2022 as well. Now the question is, how is it possible for Blackstone to shut their doors to prevent investors from demanding their money back? If the business is so profitable that it can afford to give out $5 billion in dividends, then what do we conclude here in terms of paying debts? We can probably say that maybe it has corrupt accounting rules, a very similar case to SVB's collapse. Blackstone so far has been allowed to value their assets whether they see fit. Let's say, for example, they purchase a house for $200 million and they claim a year later that it has doubled in value, which is now $400 million. Well, that is a $200 million profit, and it is this profit that they will give to their shareholders. Blackstone has been doing this repeatedly over 2022, and they have continually increased the valuations of their properties right as properties around the rest of the world started to fall. You might ask yourself, how is this even possible? The thing here is that we think of 2 possibilities. The first one is that maybe Blackstone is really so special that they are the most incredible property investors the world has ever seen. The second possibility that we think about this empire is that most likely they could be simply lying about their valuations, booking false profits, and looting their investors for all the cash they can. Surprisingly, it seems that the mainstream media isn't even ready to cover this, or anything that is happening to Blackstone currently. Why? It is because they don't want you to see this, or hear anything about Blackstone. Yes, they said, not every day is a D-Day, as we all know. Things are at large getting messier. The American banking crisis has already started, and Blackstone seems to be more tied up in this ordeal than they'd like you to believe. It began just a few days after the Silicon Valley Bank began to collapse, when Stephen Schwarzman, the CEO and founder of Blackstone, rushed to the media and assured everyone that everything was all well and that there was no banking crisis, and SVB was fine. These were just total lies. SVB was not fine at all, and Blackstone in the end was even considering buying out SVB's loan book in an attempt to grow while the other banks collapsed. There were varied attempts by Schwarzman to cover up the story of bank failures and collapses, but all these proved futile. And even worse, more and more banks continued to face collapse. He goes ahead to elaborate by telling us that what was happening currently in the banking sector was more of a technological crisis. He even blames iPhone users and other devices that we're hearing on social media. When things got weirder for him, next we see JP Morgan, who came up trying to protect Blackstone from media sensation. Back in November, Blackstone's bank run began as the institution saw its investors flee by the door, as they had to lock everything shut, as we mentioned earlier in this video. This became bad news to everyone, but JP Morgan decided it wasn't even worth commenting on. JP Morgan in November just pretended that this didn't happen at all, and they decided to declare that Blackstone was their top pick for financials inside of a potential Fed pivot. An odd position to take, considering how just weeks before Blackstone's investors were demanding to get their money back. But surprisingly, Blackstone still held that firm decision, claiming that Blackstone is the best in its class, and that we should all go buy Blackstone stock and give them our money. For Blackstone, it seems they are losing confidence in their business model, and they just might be starting to panic. Over the last few months, Blackstone first announced an attempt to raise a further $10 billion for what they call tactical opportunities. The idea is that they can buy up depressed assets while prices are in the depths during the coming recession. But now, what if they are trying to raise capital to keep themselves liquid and to stop becoming the tactical opportunity for a better placed firm? In another unexpected move, Blackstone announced that they are pushing for non-institutional investors. For the first time, the company has focused on the big fish, the hedge funds, pension funds, governments, and billion-dollar businesses. But now they are throwing their entire playbook out of the window by targeting individuals instead of institutions. To our belief, this is totally out of character. What we truly believe is that Blackstone used to have more money than expected, which is how they brought up over $120 billion worth of real estate over the matter of just a few years. And now over the course of these few months, it's all just coming to a grinding halt, and now they're selling properties instead of buying them as they did before. The truth remains, Blackstone has actually defaulted on their $562 million bond based on Finnish and European offices. They have also been forced to enter a special serving of 2 other massive bonds, which means they couldn't abide by the original repayment terms. Now, someone might ask, how big are those 2 other bonds? Well, one is based in Las Vegas and is worth $325 million, while the other one is based on New York apartments and is worth $270 million, meaning Blackstone is experiencing a mortgage crisis as we speak that is already larger than $1 billion. And it's just getting started, so if they don't repay these loans, I guarantee there are more out there that they won't be able to repay either, because they are in over $50 billion of debt. They found themselves in this huge problem of huge amounts of debt after it emerged that they were using their billions in capital to buy up entire single-family home neighborhoods, pricing out normal people who have never been able to buy a house. Now, this has been a long trend in Blackstone, and they did this not only in America, but also in the whole world. This later evolved to a point where the entire business model had to be dropped because the backlash was so great. Of course, they are still doing it where the backlash isn't so great, like in the UK. Again, Blackstone is facing another scandal, and it appears that they have for so long been exploiting child labor. Their problems have grown to a point of no return or no save, and what we expect to hear very soon is a total shutdown of the empire. What do you think should be done to save Blackstone? This brings us to the end of our video today. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. Remember to send your suggestions on Blackstone in the comment box below. And please let it not be against the YouTube guidelines. Meanwhile, if you loved watching, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. If you are new to this channel, remember to hit the subscribe button below and the notification bell so that you can be notified of any new videos we upload about economy news and stories. Thank you for watching, and let's meet in our next video.